Right, I am looking for our record option. Bear with me just a moment. Sorry, everyone. Stan, do you have the option to record?
I don't believe I do. Is
I don't see the option to record like I typically would.
yeah, does anybody else, David or Allison, do you see?
I'm looking, but I don't see it yet.
Okay, well, should we start with introductions? I did just put a call out to our team. I apologize. But let's, as I wait for that response to come in, my name is Sarah McGrower. I am with Kale, and I just wanted to welcome us this morning and share a few housekeeping items. So just please note that our attendees are muted, but please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. And with that, I'd like to welcome you to A Tale of Two Cities, a revolutionary collaboration in workforce and higher education strategies. I will pass it over to our speakers to introduce themselves.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Stan Odenthal. I am the Director of Business Relations for Heartland Workforce Solutions. I'm based out of Omaha, Nebraska. So when we're talking about A Tale of Two Cities, we're talking about Omaha and Lincoln, Nebraska. So I'm joined here by a couple of my colleagues from Lincoln, Nebraska. I'll hand it over to them to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is David Comron. I'm an Assistant Director with Continuing Education and Workforce Solutions at Southeast Community College based in Lincoln, Nebraska. We are in the capital city. I'll talk a little bit more about who we are and what we do, but I'll pass it off to my colleague, Allison.
Yes, thank you. And I'm Allison. I'm also in Lincoln with David. I am the Director of Workforce Development within the Lincoln Partnership for Economic Development. That is a public-private partnership with the City of Lincoln, and we have private investors, but we're housed sort of within the Chamber of Commerce, and so within that kind of network area in Lincoln.
Yeah, so on this presentation, then you've got me, who represents the Workforce Development Board serving 3 counties in the Omaha area. You got David representing a community college, and Allison in that economic development and also workforce development world out of Lincoln. And so You may also have paid attention on that first slide about, kind of Lincoln and Omaha, Tale of Two Cities. So what do you think about when you think about Nebraska? And it's kind of funny because I'm a transplant to Nebraska, and I asked this to my friends, and they're like, so like your backyard's just a giant cornfield, right? And I'm like, not exactly, not exactly. But it seems to be like the first thing that people think about when they think about Nebraska. And yes, there are cornfields everywhere, but we also want to make sure that you know that, Lincoln and Omaha are pretty cool places. So we got a few pictures and of both of the towns. On the left, you can see Omaha. On the right, you can see Lincoln. Just fun places to be, right, David and Allison? David's a transplant too to Nebraska. You want to talk a little bit about that, David?
Yeah, absolutely, Stan. So I've been in Nebraska for about 13 years now, so it has become my home. And prior to moving to Nebraska, I was certainly, I had an opinion of it, maybe similar to what you had described. But there, especially in Lincoln and Omaha, great metropolitan areas. We're going to talk about some of the great work that we're doing between workforce and educational institutions as well.
Yeah, it's a fun place to be. As you notice on the title slide, we've got all kinds of islands and rivers right around us. If you look at that map, I'm just kidding. We're right next to Snake Island, I noticed on that map, and Lincoln's next to Crystal Island. Just kidding. That's totally just a fake map, but you can actually see that we do have so many great things happening in Lincoln and Omaha. So we want to talk a little bit about that. As we talk about economically, what is happening in our state and how the work that we do plays into that. So initially, this slide has a lot of data on it. A couple things that we'd really want to highlight is the low unemployment rate, the 2.7% unemployment rate in Nebraska. We're consistently, one of the lowest states as far as, unemployment rates go. Sometimes we're at the very lowest point among all states. Usually we're in that top 5 as far as lowest unemployment rate go. But it's also a challenge because we have so many job openings. And so you see the data right there of over 30,000 job openings. And this is a state with just less than 2 million people. And so that's a lot of job openings. Me being working for an organization out of Omaha, these numbers, as far as job openings, have actually gone down quite a bit over the last year. About 18 months ago, 2 years ago, we would have, 20,000 unique job openings, 20 to 25,000 unique job openings on a daily basis, and sometimes up to 40,000 unique job openings over the course of a monthly period. And so, a few things are changing in the economy, but we do have a lot of people that are still out there looking for work. The job center that I work at on a regular basis, we get, 100 to 150 people walking through our doors every single day. On a Monday when, the first day of the week to file for unemployment, we'll occasionally get 200 people, job seekers, walking through our doors, looking for work, looking to file for unemployment. And so there is a lot of things happening in our state, in our communities that, are a little bit different than what you'd expect looking at that low unemployment rate. Some of the other data included in here, includes labor market indicators, what the labor force looks like, the actual participation rate. We're always really high on that participation rate. We also have a lot of people who are multiple wage earners, which means essentially that they're working more than one job. Oftentimes that's part-time, multiple part-time jobs. Oftentimes those jobs go without benefits, they're low paying. So some of the strategies that we'll get into is not only working with individuals who are looking for that job or looking for that training and are unemployed, but working with individuals who are currently employed to get them that better job to help fill some of our mid and high skill job needs that are happening. I don't know, Allison, do you want to talk about anything else on these slides?
No, you covered it. On the next slide, though, I did want to highlight the population. And so Lincoln and Omaha make up quite a bit of the population. And so Lincoln and Omaha are both on the east and southeast side of the state. And so we're within, I don't know, when I grew up, it was about 50 miles. It shrinks every year of each other, but definitely a region, a pretty metropolitan region between Lincoln and Omaha, and balanced with the rest of the state that I like to call Greater Nebraska, that is fairly rural. And so just wanted to point out the balance of of Metro on the east side with Lincoln and Omaha.
And that also kind of brings a unique approach to the work that we do, because with such a high population in those two communities, strategizing and working hand in hand with some of our state agencies is also a little bit, tricky. It's challenging, but there's opportunities there as well. And so I know, Allison, you and I both have worked for some of the state agencies. And so, taking a local perspective now as we focus in on our work in Lincoln and me in Omaha, partnering with our Nebraska Department of Labor or Nebraska Economic Development agency, it's one of those things where there's so many approaches that are trying to, illustrate the good jobs in the state or attract talent to the state, as a whole with one marketing campaign. And, rural Nebraska is very different than Lincoln or Omaha. And so trying to be a part of those initiatives at the state level, but then also kind of having our own branding as communities as well. So I don't know, that's been a little bit of a challenge for me in Omaha. I'm sure that has for you in Lincoln, right, Allison?
Yep, I would agree.
So moving on to this next slide, we're going to hand it over to the Lincoln group. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. So one of the things that I do is I help coordinate this Lincoln Manufacturing Council. So LMC is an easier way to describe it. LMC is an association with 18 companies and 10 community partners who've come together to build up the manufacturing workforce in Lincoln, and primarily through our certification classes. This first slide, I have two slides on it, but this first slide describes kind of what I would loosely call our level 1. So that's the Lincoln Manufacturing Basic Certificate Program. It's been nationally recognized as a best practice. It's designed to give people who have no prior experience in manufacturing the skills necessary for success in those entry-level manufacturing jobs. And we like to highlight that those come with the stability and great pay and benefits. So the program is structured so that it includes a lot of face-to-face interactions with employers through the class presentations and through job shadows. And we have a job fair at the end of each class session. The certificate participants, the certificate that they receive by completing the class is recognized within the Lincoln manufacturing community and gives them a bit of an edge in their applications. So our goals are to make the program really accessible by removing barriers. We boost the participants' confidence in manufacturing as a career. We try to break down any stigmas around the field and create kind of that excitement about manufacturing and interest. It runs for 2 weeks, so not 2 weeks. It runs for 2 hours a week over 6 weeks, so we meet once a week. And we try to reduce those barriers. So we're including meals and childcare and transportation. At the end of the class, if they have completed all of the requirements and then they apply for a manufacturing job, the participants also receive a $250 stipend or a supportive service payment, but that's to offset any opportunity costs that they might experience. A lot of our participants are working multiple jobs to make ends meet, and so we understand that their time is valuable, and coming to the class could impact wages earned from another opportunity. So we like to incentivize them to apply for a manufacturing job and recognize their investment through that stipend. This structure allows each participant to get like the practical skills and exposure to career opportunities in manufacturing. I guess real quick too, we started this in 2019. We've had 171 graduates. We had nearly 70% of them tell us that they've applied for a job. So that is one of those requirements to get the stipend. And so they need to tell us that. So 70% said that they applied for a job. And 42%, there's no requirement to tell us this, but 42 reported that they did attain a job after completing the certificate. So I think that's great, since there's no incentive for them to follow up and tell us about that job attainment. We're pretty pleased with that 42%. We imagine that it's even greater than that. So, and then thanks, Dan, we can go to the next slide. A few years ago, we were awarded city ARPA grant dollars to expand our LMC programming. And so we began to explore the opportunity to partner with Southeast Community College and David to provide a program that focuses more on building the technical skills. So we collaborated and developed this manufacturing skill certificate, which is tailored for people with some manufacturing experience who want to advance their skills and really like speed up that career growth. So it covers 3 essential modules: industrial math, print reading, and measurement. And it includes those skills that are directly support that career advancement in manufacturing. The folks who are going through the audience, we have kind of these 3 groups. It's the people who are currently employed in manufacturing with that potential to kind of be promoted or potential beyond their current role. It's also inclusive of graduates who completed that level 1 that I just described. And so they might not have actually worked in manufacturing yet, but are ready for that like really skill-based program. And then it also has those with prior manufacturing experience who are looking to re-enter that industry. So maybe they've been out of manufacturing for a while, but they're maybe too advanced for our really entry-level level 1. So three primary groups. This one is a lot longer. So it's they meet twice a week usually. We've done a condensed version, but usually it's twice a week for 2 hours over 4 months. So it's 60 contact hours. And with those 3 modules, they're paid $250 per module for their time, making it still an investment in their growth, a valuable investment for them in their growth. And it provides structured paid learning to equip those participants for their next level careers. And I'll hand it over to David for the next slide to describe SCC's involvement in that collaboration.
Thank you very much, Alice. And before I get into that, I just wanted to describe a little bit about Southeast Community College, who we are, who we serve. So we are based in Southeast Nebraska. We serve a 15-county area there. We have campuses in Lincoln, which is the capital city, Milford, and Beatrice as well in Southeast Nebraska. We serve over 10,000 students, and we're actually very excited because we have the highest enrollment in fall 2024 for the past 10 years. So seeing that rise in enrollment is great. I particularly work for the Workforce Solutions Department in Continuing Ed. So a lot of you on this call are probably familiar with what Continuing Ed does. We provide and develop short-term non-credit training for upskilling and reskilling. And so this is really attractive to a lot of our clients and partners because, they're looking to get training to be able to apply to their work or get a new job right now, right? They're not looking to go back to school full-time to get a job, or excuse me, looking to go back to school full-time. They don't have the time and resources to do that, which is why it was a great fit when LMC approached us to create this training. And ultimately, we were just interested in creating accessible educational opportunities for workforce development. Another office I'd like to highlight from SCC, which especially meets and I guess agrees with KO's mission and philosophy, is our Office of Work-Based Learning. And essentially, this office was created about 2 years ago, really focused on bridging the gap between education and industry with the goal and the mission of creating pathways for all. So through things like apprenticeships, credit for prior learning, where someone can take prior work experience and get credit for that in a credit or stackable program, are things that our office has been doing. We're also approaching micro-credential and digital badge initiatives as well, and ultimately wanting to create stackable credentials for lifelong learning. Because as we're seeing, the needs of the workforce are changing. We are needing people who are versatile and diverse in their skill sets and who are interested in kind of building it through stackable short-term credentials. So moving on to the next slide, talking a little bit more about the Lincoln Manufacturing Council. When LMC approached us about 1.5 years ago, we wanted to make sure we took a very intentional and deliberate approach. So the first thing that we did was do a needs assessment, right? And we were very intentional about making this industry-led. So with the companies that Allison had referred to that were part of the Lincoln Manufacturing Council, we reached out to them and really asked, what do you need in terms of training? What are the competencies that the people who complete this training need to be able to do to successfully perform a job? And so the 3 main areas, as she highlighted, was industrial math, measurement, and blueprint reading. After we did that, we had identified an instructor or a subject matter expert. And obviously, being an educational institution at Southeast Community College, we have access to a lot of great instructors and subject matter experts. But in any kind of a training opportunity, something I always say is we can't have a class unless there's someone there to teach it, right? So that's a really important part of developing a training. The next part of it, of course, is the funding determination. And so how are you going to pay for it? You know, how are you going to pay to develop the class, equipment needed for the class as well, and to pay your instructor? And so Allison had mentioned as well that the ARPA grant funds is what was used to pay fund the LMC Level 2 class, but that funding determination is very important. So looking for any kinds or applying for grants, seeing different scholarships that are available, or even getting some kind of a donation or contribution from the industry partners is really, really important. And it's a step that you want to make sure you check early off in the process because obviously you have to be able to pay for what you're going to create. After doing all the three of the above, having pre-training meetings. So making sure that you're familiarizing the subject matter expert or the instructor with the industry partners and really trying to get on the same page and determining what those needs are. Then what the instructor will do then is the curriculum development. So building the curriculum itself, right? Starting with an outline and building it with objectives and competencies, and also an outline of what the training is going to look like. When that's done, the instructor and I will then share that with the industry partners to get a review of that, to get their perspective of, does this look good? What are some improvements that need to be made? What are some other needs that need to be met? And after we've done that, we conduct the training itself, right? So we actually run it. And it's very important during that time that we get feedback of what's going well, but more importantly, what can improve. And this is during and after the training. And so these are some steps that, and of course, you know, there's a lot of detail that goes into it, but it's a great template, a great model that we followed that was able to make our training very successful. So moving on to the next slide, something really, really important. And I'm someone who loves to reflect on what has gone well and what can be improved, but what we really learned from this collaboration. And the first thing, as I mentioned in the last slide, is that industry-led approach. Because if we are creating training and people who need to be workforce ready to be able to go on the field and immediately be able to be successful at their jobs, we have to make sure we're listening to industry, right? What are the needs of these companies and can we meet it in the training? The second thing is, of course, communication and transparency. So always making sure we're keeping that communication open, always making sure that we are being upfront with the needs and the demands and the expectations as well. We have to be able to meet the needs of the employers. And if for some reason we can't, we need to communicate that to them. So that's really important as well. The next two are kind of related to each other. Actually, the next three, always being open to feedback, right? And being willing to be flexible and adapt and change if needed. And so I'm someone who truly believes that constructive criticism is good because that's really how we get better at things. And as we started this training, there's a lot of feedback that we had and that we implemented during the class itself. And so that stuff is really important to consider and be open to be able to refine and really tailor the training to meet the needs of industry and the student as well. A quote that I have there, something that I heard a few months ago that I think is great, is perfect is the enemy of good. And by that, we mean not trying to make something so perfect and so refined, but being okay with just putting something well thought out and good out there in terms of the training and letting the feedback and the and what you hear back from the students, letting that be something that helps refine it. Now, of course, I don't mean to say just throw something out there without thinking about it. Things have to be well thought out, of course. But when we focus on trying to make every little thing perfect, it can prevent us from just kind of putting it out there. And what's going to allow us to refine it is that feedback that we get. Moving on, the wraparound services, very important as well. So SEC, us, provided the training part of it. But the folks at LMC and Allison's office help provide things like a stipend for wage replacement, transportation, meals, childcare, career kind of help afterwards, connecting them to employers. So The training is great and providing them with the technical skills are great, but we want to make sure our students really have that holistic experience. So we're connecting them to different opportunities and not just giving them the training and shoving them out. And then finally, being willing to partner and collaborate with industry and community partners. And this was something that was really highlighted to me in this project where LMC in Allison's department brought a strength and a set of skills, and SEC, being my educational institution, brought another bag of skills. And so we're able to combine them together to be very successful. And so this kind of collaboration, leveraging the skills and the talents and the strengths of other partners is really, really important. And I think as we move on to the next slide, Allison's going to get a little bit into some of the success stories that we had from this training, which are really exciting.
David, we've got a question in the chat that I'd love to ask you. So what are the courses that your students are getting CPL for the most often? I guess credit for prior learning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So the one that we started with, that was our pilot program, was in our criminal justice program. And so we partnered with the Lincoln Police Department, LPD, and the students who basically go through the LPD Academy are able to get, I think, about half of their criminal justice degree at SEC. So that was kind of dipping our toe in the water with that, and we were very successful with that. It took some partnership between our criminal justice department and the Lincoln Police Department to do that as well. And also, we have in our human resources department, we have a class that also matches up with credit there. CPL is something that we're very interested in, but we also want to make sure that we're spending the time to make sure all of the competencies line up. We want to make sure that the student's experience really does do enough to get that credit so that, you know, they're able to put that degree out and it's credible. Great question. Thank you.
And one more follow-up to that,
Sure.
and you've touched on it a little bit, but do you collaborate with partners regarding building a curriculum?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. The collaboration is key. Now, the one, I'm going to get into this at the end of the presentation, but as an educational institution, right, we've trained our instructors with kind of educational philosophies to build curriculum, right? So we already had a lot of curriculum set for this training. We borrowed from a lot of that curriculum to be able to create this level 2 training. But of course, we're always looking for industry input when it comes to our curriculum. At Southeast Community College, we have workforce leadership teams, which are advisory boards, where we invite in industry partners to review our curriculum, right? And when we want to hear how can we improve things, you know, what's working. So absolutely, we do get input from industry when building our curriculum.
And I'll chime in and say for the level 1, that curriculum was created by a local manufacturer training department. And so it was at least initially created by and then proposed to the council, reviewed by all types of manufacturers and kind of approved collectively. And then before we received our ARPA grant, the level 1 courses were all taught by manufacturers in town, sort of on a volunteer basis, but also like their hours were being paid for by their employers. And so they were our council members, employees teaching the classes after hours. And now that we have the grant, we're able to pay them separately. And so that has been helpful. Once the grant is done, if we don't get a new grant for that, we'll go back to that same model where the level 1 class is taught by our manufacturing council members. So, and then for just a quick success stories, these two folks, they graduated from our level 2. Umaru, he was initially hired within his company through a staffing agency. He did not pass the test initially to be hired permanently. He went through this class. He was able to pass that test the very next time and join that company on a permanent basis. Nick, he went through that level 1 class, started working at a manufacturer print company in town called Firespring. They recommended to him that he go through that level 2. They saw like just a huge growth in confidence from him through going through that level 2. And so just like really he's happier in his job. He's more confident in doing things outside of his routine, and the company is just really proud of him and grateful for that too. So quick success stories from us. And then I think, yeah, on to Stan, back to you.
I did have one more question in the chat. This one comes from Stan O out of Omaha. Just wanted to ask the two of you, since there is so much energy with manufacturing in Lincoln, I know sometimes it's hard for industry-led initiatives to get off the ground. And so sometimes it is that there's just so much going on in manufacturing, so many open jobs available in a community. And maybe Lincoln, compared to other communities, has that high number of manufacturing jobs available. But then oftentimes it's just those community leaders, right? The business leaders that have the energy and just want to make it happen. And so from what you've seen in your positions over time, do you feel like it's one more than the other? Do you feel like it's the leadership and the energy with the businesses, or is there really that much going on in manufacturing, or maybe just kind of a combination of both?
I can say, at least for the kind of idea and creation, the launch of the Lincoln Manufacturing Council, that really started through our manufacturing leaders. So they're well connected. They saw this need for immediate workforce filling of opportunities. They're always focused also on exposure to students and younger, but they needed something more immediate. And so they were gathered around after hours and they said, gosh, what we need is this class that's gonna introduce people to manufacturing who are not confident to go, like they would never just go out to a manufacturer and submit an application. They have no experience. They've been working at the drugstores down the street or the convenience stores or so we need something that is going to take this group of folks who really just aren't comfortable in that space yet and let them interact and meet and some bridging relationships with manufacturers to I don't know, let them know that this is an opportunity for them. So that started with that leadership, recognizing their need, bringing in us as a partner, and then with that coordination, expertise and time capacity. So that's how LMC got started. But I think you're right that there is a balance of both, and I've seen other examples where it's more from that needs and the capacity gets it started with the industry. So.
Yeah, I just kind of want to ask that question too, as we transition into what's happening in Omaha, Nebraska, because I'm going to talk a little bit about healthcare as well as construction, because those have been more of our primary industries that we've partnered with a lot of the business leaders on. I'm still trying to get manufacturing things up and going. And so we're looking at Lincoln and what they're doing as a model for what we can do in Omaha as well. And so that's how we learn from each other as communities, and we have regular conversations and obviously occasionally do a presentation together here and there, as you're seeing today. So I'm with Heartland Workforce Solutions. We are a nonprofit. We are the local workforce development board under the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act that serves a 3-county area. It's basically the 3 counties that are in the Omaha MSA on the Nebraska side of things. So the Omaha MSA actually extends into Iowa. There's Council Bluffs. There's a few other places on the Iowa side. And so we also actively partner with representatives from the Iowa side of things as well in Omaha. Our goal is to promote and develop a workforce system that is responsive to the needs of business and career seekers, resulting in economic prosperity. And the picture you can see on your screen is an event that we hold annually. I'll talk a little bit about some of these events, but this is our Jobapalooza event that we hold every year, outdoors, fun, community block party type event. And so we're regularly trying to engage not only the job seekers that are coming into our building, but also, and I mentioned those numbers before, I mean, sometimes 150 to 200 people a day walking through our doors. But we're also trying to engage the community that's around us. We're located in an area that has had historically high unemployment rates in North Omaha. We're going to be opening up a new office in the coming weeks in South Omaha, which is located in another zip code that also has had historically high unemployment rates. And so we're locating our buildings and our job centers in locations where there's the highest need. And so we can't rely on folks just to walk through our doors. We know that we need to connect with the community around us. So that's why we host these big events. Last night, we actually held a spectacular job fair where it was essentially a trunk or treat. Job seekers could bring their kids. People could get candy, dressed in costumes, interview for a job while you're there. And so we're constantly doing events like this. So those are two examples. We've also know that so many folks are looking for a better job, right? Not just a job right now, but a better job. So some of the successes we've had with job fairs has been highlighting the pay component of job fairs. So coming up in December, we've got a job fair where it's 50K and above. So we're only letting employers in the room who have jobs starting at 50K. And so what that does is that signals those job seekers that are in that job market to say, hey, come on in. You know, you might be making $15 an hour but right now, but you might have a bachelor's degree. You might have the skills that you need. You might have the experience that you need. You might just be underemployed right now. Let's get you that better job. And so we're looking at all ends of the spectrum with that. Additionally, we've really enhanced our outreach via social media and business news, our business newsletter. So social media, we know that we can reach so many more folks. So we've opened up channels and done a lot more. We've got our social media channels of Facebook, we've got LinkedIn, we've got Instagram, but we're also being creative and doing a lot of stuff on TikTok right now. That's reaching a different audience. We're exploring threads and posting stuff out there right now, seeing what sticks and what doesn't. You know, so we've kind of got that eye for how do we bring people into the center that don't want to come into the center. So we provide them those resources online, we provide them electronically, we recruit from a number of different things. So with that, we've got great programming with employer spotlights. And businesses can come in and highlight the jobs that they have open, immediately hire in our job centers. We've got some great funding from the city of Omaha with the Career Readiness to Eliminate Disparities program. Every year they give us about $700,000 in city funds that help to fill in the gaps for you know, some of the WIOA programs that, you know, some training programs that may not fall within WIOA or may not fall within voc rehab programs, stuff that's like short term that may not be eligible for the eligible training provider list. We do a lot of like OSHA 10 training, a lot of phlebotomy, CNA type training, leading to other opportunities later. And so then you have your traditional WIOA programs as well as, you know, incumbent worker dollars that our board has set aside to train up existing employees. Two areas that I really wanted to highlight were our two sector strategy groups. So we have one in healthcare, we have one in construction. The healthcare group has been around now for close to 2 years. The construction group has been around now close to a year. With healthcare, we've been mostly focusing on positions and roles within the hospital system in Omaha. So we've got all of the major players at the table. All of the major hospitals are there. With the construction work group, we're focusing in on some of the entry-level positions, and we've got a variety of union and non-union construction partners involved with that. So we take the role of, you know, the convener of these organizations in the sector strategy, but letting those businesses do the talking, letting them drive change at the job center, letting, you know, creating tools together to promote those pathways. So on your screen, you can see two different packets, one from the construction thing, one from the healthcare thing. Basically, what we've done is with working with these construction and healthcare leaders, we've created profiles, they're templated profiles about jobs in those industries. And we use them to promote those careers, not only to job seekers, but also we've partnered with Omaha Public Schools and done events where we're promoting those occupations to students as well as their parents. On the healthcare side of things, we even went so far as to do our resource guide in Spanish because we know that a lot of the parents of those students may have a preference for reading in Spanish rather than English. And so we want to make sure that we're connecting that information to the right folks. And so also we've done things where, this is where the pictures are here on the right side of your screen, where we've utilized those industry leaders to come in and train our career coaches. And so that's what's happening in these pictures. They're training them on pathways, how to connect their clients to these opportunities, to the training pathways. And so that's how we're connecting it all back to the job center. We're gaining the industry input, but we're connecting it back to the job centers. We're also partnering very closely with our university system as well as our community college system. So here's an example of how the University of Nebraska Omaha utilized our sector strategy in healthcare to help build up a new training program that they were looking at.
Hi, my name is Ana Lopez Shala, and I'm excited to speak to the experience of collaborating with Heartland Workforce Solutions from a higher ed perspective to help to put together an industry-aligned micro-credential project. So the University of Nebraska at Omaha, where I worked as a director when we collaborated on this project, in 2022 started to seriously explore setting up operations around micro-credentials. And briefly, micro-credentials are short form, skills-based courses. A lot of times they're online, asynchronous, meant to optimize from an accessibility standpoint, from the investment of time and money that students or learners have to invest, and also the portability that they get training and an in-demand skill that they then can put on their resumes, on their LinkedIn profiles, their handshake profiles, and that they have a digital credential that verifies from whatever the training institution or organization is that they know and have these skills. So as we did our labor market research, and which both is looking at publicly available data sources, as well as talking to local employers, we saw a niche skills gap in individuals working in healthcare settings who were able to fill the gap of translation services before they could arrive when you're first working with patients, ways to calm them down, orient them, in a way that's sensitive to their language needs. Since we know that Spanish is one of the most widely spoken languages in the greater Omaha area, that was the area where we wanted to specifically focus. So we engaged our Spanish faculty from the University of Nebraska at Omaha, and then our focus group became the employers that were a part of the healthcare sector partnership at Heartland Workforce Solutions. And the benefit of this was that they could give this broad-based perspective on how this particular issue, this particular workforce and client service challenge, how it manifested a little bit differently in each of their environments so that the curriculum itself could provide value for all, right? And that could come from the case studies, the assignments and assessments that were baked into the course. And so that our faculty members could have direct access, could go and shadow and see exactly what it meant in a pediatric environment versus an adult environment in different disciplines throughout. It was a really wonderful coming together of stakeholders to come with what they're uniquely positioned to do from a university perspective, that is bring brilliant faculty and the means to create and distribute curriculum and learning experiences. And from the public workforce system, to be able to bring employers at scale who are engaged in solving some of the trickiest talent development challenges that they all collectively face. It was an awesome application of the sector partnership strategy towards that end, and a really cool, discrete project that we could all collaborate on together. Excited to say that Spanish for Healthcare Workers, the micro-credential from the University of Nebraska at Omaha, is underway, and excited to launch it to providers soon.
Yeah, so and I know we're kind of running short on time, so I don't think we'll get into these best practices immediately. We'll take a look at some of the questions in the chat, but in addition to what Anna was saying, we've also utilized those groups for feedback on a couple major federal grants recently as well that were construction focused or healthcare focused. And when you've got that short turnaround time to put together a grant proposal, it's really nice to have that built-in, ready to go group of industry leaders that you can seek out that feedback not only the feedback, but also the commitments to be a part of something like that. They've got that buy-in to the workforce system, to the career pipeline that we're trying to build. And so that's been a win-win for us at the Job Center as well as for those businesses. And hopefully we'll get some grant dollars rolling in here soon as well. And I want to make sure that we have time to answer questions. So should we take a look at those in the chat?
Yeah, Stan, one of the questions that came up regarding what you and Anna had collaborated on is which kind of healthcare positions were you working with?
Yeah, so that one was a little bit of everything. So we originally went into it thinking, okay, the conversation involved the Spanish department at University of Nebraska, Omaha. The healthcare leaders we brought to the table were mostly in the hospital world. And so formatting that product to that micro-credential to the world of kind of frontline folks at the hospitals, of people, as you walk through the door, that person at the front desk, those were mostly the positions that is being focused on. However, we did have really robust conversations about how the applicability of what they're doing with that micro-credential in the dental world, we feel like is going to be even bigger. And so getting the right people around the table for that one is kind of what's coming next. Any other questions in the chat?
I don't see another question, but one thing that while we're waiting for more questions to come in, one thing that I do want to highlight on this best practices and wins that I wanted to make sure that we talk about is that nonprofit support for workforce development. One of the something that's been really helpful for the Lincoln Manufacturing Council and the certificate programs that we have is that we work really closely with a network of workforce development professionals in nonprofits across the town. Called Employ LNK. LNK is our airport code, but EmployLink. And so that hub or that network lets us efficiently promote job and work-based learning opportunities. And so we can get the word out really quickly about employment opportunities from some of our Lincoln employers or area employers. We can also share out training opportunities. And so creating that network locally has been really helpful for these opportunities. And that's something that I definitely recommend in every community.
And then one thing that I'd highlight from this list too is the workforce boards and how we work together. So the Omaha board, as I mentioned, is 3 counties. The Lincoln board is 2 counties. That's actually run through the city in Lincoln. We're a separate nonprofit in Omaha. However, we got a great working relationship. And we also now have the same service provider providing the WIOA services in both areas, Dynamic Workforce Solutions. And so we've recently implemented a shared one-stop operator system. If you're familiar with the public workforce system, helps to coordinate a lot of the activities that are happening at the job center, but among the required workforce partners as well. And so we're anticipating that that's going to allow us to build some more shared training, cross-training across different programs, allowing folks to represent various workforce development programs when they're going out and meeting with businesses or job seekers or partners or whoever that might be. And so just getting started with that, but we've got a great history of working together, and I think that also makes a world of difference. Any other questions from anyone in the audience? Okay, well, I think we're like right at time right now. Any final thoughts from anybody? The materials have been uploaded, and so they're available on the app, or they should be soon. And so we'll make sure that everybody has that. You can always feel free to reach out to any of us. I think our contact information is it available to people or not? If not, just Google us, find us, reach out. But we're happy to give this presentation and tell you what's going on in Nebraska, especially Lincoln and Omaha. Thanks for being with us today, and I hope you have the good rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you, David, Stan, and Allison for sharing your knowledge and this great content. The information and your contact materials are available in our conference app. And I just want to remind our attendees to please complete the evaluation that's attached to this session so that we can take your insight into consideration as we move forward. And thank you for your participation. Have a good rest of the conference.
Thank you.